Okay, Congressman. So we're here talking about the two sexes executive order that was signed by President Donald Trump this week. Just to get us started, what are your thoughts on that order?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, and sorry for getting to you here from the car. We were at the March for Life today here in D.C. I'll be flying home to Texas tomorrow morning. But look, I very much support the president's executive order. I firmly believe, as do most Texans, the people that I represent, that there are two sexes, male and female. I was proud to see Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, now confirmed, good friend of mine. He issued an order or directive today as Secretary of State to do the same thing on passports, which was interesting in the bill that I introduced and co-led it with J.D. Vance when he was a senator in the U.S. Senate. So we believe this is just common sense. We've allowed this to get kind of out of control, and we should get back to the basic understanding of biology. There are two sexes. None of that, eliminates somebody's ability to deal with whatever they have to deal with permanently. But in terms of what we have to do and deal with in bathrooms, and dealing with men and women in sports, we have to frankly recognize that there is man and that there's woman, and that's really important.
A big part of that order is restoring sanity, is what it says, and then also protecting women. How do you
Yeah.
think that this order does that?
Well, there's been so many stories, women that, frankly, I've had people in Texas, people that I represent, but also people nationally, people like Riley Gaines, people that have dealt with the issues where they felt discriminated against, women in sports. We've had women's sports teams where they've been unable to compete because they've been dealing with a competition where there was a male playing for the other team. I think Boise State is a recent example, volleyball teams and others, but there are dozens or hundreds of examples like that. And then there's the issue of the continued pressure. That's a slightly different issue, but with respect to the whole transgender issue, people like Chloe Cole, who was pushed into transgender surgeries, now is trying to reclaim her womanhood so that she can be a mother. She testified in a hearing that I was chairing in the United States Judiciary House Judiciary Committee, and literally the closest I've come to crying, sitting at the dais, was listening to her testimony of what she's gone through. And so this is common sense. The president is right. I'm really proud of what this first week has represented to just restore, as you said, common sense and sanity again here in not just Washington, but the country.
And what would you say to the people who are going to be affected by this order that might have a little bit of pushback?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be that affected by it. At the end of the day, we are born as male or female. We should address that. We should embrace it on our passports and our documentation. We ought to recognize that. People have their own individual medical issues. They've got to deal with those. And I understand that, but deal with those in the medical context, but don't politicize the basics of biology. It's having an unfair and a frankly disastrous impact on our young women, whether it's not just sports, but just in general, in terms of how we're dealing with that and the impact on them and bathrooms and fearing for their safety. There's replete with examples. We've got the record filled with various hearings that we've had on the matter. I think the president did a great job leading on it, as did Marco Rubio today in the Secretary of State's office.
And do you foresee any legal pushback with this? Is this something that will skate right through legislation?
Yeah, I mean, I believe it should be on pretty firm ground. I'm unaware of any particular legal backing that there's anything other than the two sexes. And in fact, the Supreme Court has recognized distinctions between the two sexes and in most of our laws. And that's you get into legal jargon like suspect classification, all these things. But there's the courts have recognized those distinctions as they should. There are distinctions. We recognize those, and they're important distinctions. They're distinctions we should embrace. Everybody should get equal protection under the law. Nobody, I think, questions that. I think, but what that equal protection looks like shouldn't be manufacturing sexes that don't exist, which frankly undermines those recognized differences and frankly put some of our young women and our daughters in danger.
And do you think that the country and the state of Texas will benefit from this putting to pasture of gender ideology?
I certainly think so. I also very much supported what the president was doing with respect to his decisions on affirmative action and DEI. We've got to get back to merit, get back to common sense. Look, I very much strongly believe. I mean, not get into specifics, but my chief of staff is female. My legislative director is female. I very much value anybody, as we should, come in and present fairly on merit, and we shouldn't discriminate in any meaningful way. But we've got to get back to the basics, okay? And this whole notion of what we've been doing with putting flags up and putting DEI as the first thing in the first order of business instead of merit. I don't think anybody is going to ask the surgeon operating on them about their DEI background. They want to know if this is a qualified individual who is ready to be a surgeon. Same thing with a pilot. Nobody's looking to walk into the cockpit and go, man, isn't that diverse? You just want to know if they can fly. I don't care who they are, what their background is. We just want to make sure that it's a merit-based, recognition of people's talents. And that's what made this country great. Equal justice under the law, equal protection means that everybody should have, the ability to be able to compete in a level playing field with respect to the law, but not that you're guaranteed some outcome. And I think that's critically important.
And wrapping up here, how do you believe that this executive order will aid you in what you need to do as a congressman for the state of Texas?
Well, I mean, I think this is clarifying. I think we need to do more in Congress to make some of these things permanent. I'm going to continue to push for my bill. I think HR, I can't remember the number, continue to push for the bill that I introduced with JD Vance to do it in this Congress. Obviously, JD won't be doing that anymore. He's in the vice president's mansion and he's serving as the vice president. But we'll be trying to work to move legislation to make this permanent, as well as other significant laws that you've seen in executive orders. A lot of my legislation has been a part of the president's executive orders. The FACE Act, he pardoned 21 individuals yesterday who were targeted for their pro-life views. I have legislation on that. I have legislation on the two sexes on passports, et cetera. So I'm gonna force ahead because I want permanent changes to law. But the executive orders mean that for at least 4 years, we're going to be in better shape as a country.
And do you have any final thoughts or points that you want to emphasize that maybe I haven't asked you?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's pretty straightforward. We believe that there are two sexes. We believe the law should reflect that. We should get busy trying to create jobs and make our country better, stronger, safer, more secure, more prosperous, and stop playing all these games that are dividing us. And I think the president did that.